And up next, we have a panel on digital transformation skills, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Gökhan Dikmener, Technical Specialist from UNDP Istanbul International Center for Private Sector in Development. Welcome, sir. And our panelists, Mr. Ali Güven, CEO of NETCAD, Mr. Dmitry Frischin, Regional Portfolio Specialist from UNV, and Mr. Markus Schwertel, Government Relations Lead for Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa at HP, and Mr. Mehmet Üvez, Principal Inclusion Specialist from EBRD. The floor is yours, and we have 30 minutes, please.
First of all, I would like to start welcoming with you. Today, I would like to also thank the organization committee for giving us the opportunity to discuss this important topic. Digital transformation nowadays, it is a source of our fears and source of our hopes. And we believe that there are great gains and also there are risks that we need to consider for our future. And today we have a very well-balanced and interesting panel, an inspiring panel. We have the leading companies, leading private sector actors of the digital transformation, and at the same time, the key development stakeholders in our panel. I would like to start with introducing our panelists, and then I will continue with our discussion points. And first, I would like to introduce Mr. Ali Güven. He is the CEO of the NETCAD. NETCAD is the leading geographic information systems in Turkey, and at the same time, it is one of the 10 global companies in this field, and they are very keen on actually finding new ways to improve our lives with geographic information solutions. And next to Ali Bey, we have Dmitry Frischin, and he is leading the United Nations volunteers. And nowadays, he is also working on bringing talented young people from the technology companies to the development world. And UNV, in the next days, UNV will also enjoy the International Volunteer Days. And next to Dmitry, we have our leader for Eastern Mediterranean Europe and Africa, North Africa, Eastern and Mediterranean, Middle East and North Africa. I guess half of the world is covered by him, I have to say it this way. Markus Schwertel, he is the lead government specialist for HP, and they are also a leader in this field, in the digital transformation field, and he will provide us insights about what technology or how technology can change our lives and how it contributes to development. And from the finance world, actually, that's where the decisions are made about our future. From EBRD, Mehmet Bey, he is the lead inclusion specialist for our region, and he will also discuss about the digital transformation and its impact on transition. And now I would like to start the conversation with setting the scene, actually. And Ali Bey Ali Bey has experience with leading tech companies, and he's leading now as the CEO of NETCAD, and he has a very far view thanks to the geographical information systems, and he will tell us about the landscape and the future, how it will be in the future, and based on these technologies, he will explain us the digital transformation. Thank you.
First of all, it's an honor to be participating in such an event because you may think, what a geographical information systems company doing here. Ladies and gentlemen, there's something quite interesting from our side, which is geographical information systems area is approaching to the epicenter of the new digital world. Why I'm saying this? Because all we do, all we say, all we listen, all we read, whatever we are doing, anything we do nowadays is simply data. And the new digital world is about online, on-time, location-based information of data. As you know, many new digital gurus are saying data is the new oil. Actually, static data is not the new oil. Moving data is the new oil. So the new digital transformation concept is about connectivity. Data is already there, data is being produced, but knowing who is doing what, where, and when is the new name of the new economy. Now, as Mr. Dikmener said, digital transformation, every company, every institution has their own story of digital transformation. Ours is about location information, which is simply smart city solutions. Anything we do nowadays falls into smart city umbrella. And what is smart city solutions? It's about the human being, the society, the city, the country, and talking and listening to the data it produces and doing actions in a digital world. What is digital transformation basically? It's converting all the actions human being is doing into a talking and listening environment. And when we talk about this, our future is changing. It has to be changing because the technology is providing us the new lifestyle, imposes us to work on moving data. And we can easily apply this idea to health, education, transportation, defense, security, and whatever field you say. But the basic is being informed about anything happening around us on time, real time, online, real time, and location-based.
Thank you. And I would like to ask, since this is a very important concept and there are various stakeholders in our economies, how do you feel about the preparedness of different stakeholders in our economy for digital transformation, like the government entities, other social sector actors, and also the private sector?
My humble opinion is maybe quite interesting for you. We are serving like 85% of local governments in Turkey. Like we have a market share around 80 in the government institutions. Honestly, in Turkey, the local governments and the central government is very prepared, very on time on transforming the country or their government into the digital world. Unfortunately, in Turkey, the private sector is simply failing. The private industries did not understand the value of digitizing their world. They still don't know the concepts. They think Industry 4.0 is just about robots, or they think smart city is just about sensors. I mean, it's much more than that. I mean, basically, they have to understand the German industrial revolution is about online talking and listening factories, which is simply running around optimized data, not robots. So the Turkish private sector has a lot to learn, but it's a good thing to know that the Turkish government has many initiatives on pushing these companies to transform digitally.
And thank you. As a final concluding remark, I would like to ask, how can we support the developing countries and the other stakeholders? Just I want to hear your vision about how we can bridge this gap between various actors.
Simply, I think what will approach developed, half-developed or underdeveloped countries together is simply new technologies and software. It's very easy to import or export. It's very easy to implement. And Turkey as a effect area of countries, we can easily go to these countries and bring our digital solutions like the United States is doing for the last 50 years. As you may know, if United States donates some funds to a country, actually these donations has to be bought as American products and services. We can do the same thing. Because it's quite easy to transform these countries by the power of software.
Thank you. And in here, I guess South-to-South cooperation, basically developing country cooperation, will be a key to bridge the gaps. And now I would like to move to our next panelist with thanking Ali Bey. And because he will be talking about how we can bridge this experience or how we can transfer this experience between countries through UN volunteers. Thank you. Please, floor is yours, Dmitry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear participants. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, and I would like especially to appreciate UNDP Center for their kind invitation. I like the topic of the event, a new world order. That means that we live in totally different world. We have quite big advantages linked to our technologies, to our digital solutions, digital ways of thinking, digital approaches. But at the same time, we have quite a number of challenges in the world. You know, the climate change, you know, some inequalities. All these global challenges need to be addressed. And we are not able to address them if we live the same way, if we do not integrate digital solutions into our world. I noticed, well, for my stay in Turkey here and for my interaction, I noticed that the big private companies in Turkey, they pay a lot of attention at engaging human resources to support digital transformation. How to engage human resources? Because we need skilled people, we need committed people, we need people who have passion about that, who are ready and able to support. And that's why we are talking about volunteers. It's not even me, it's actually the world community they are talking about volunteers. You have volunteerism everywhere. It's deeply integrated in the roots of the society. For example, I would like to refer that last year we participated in data collection and preparation of the global high-level UN report about the state of the world volunteerism. Imagine that if we gather all volunteers together around the world, it will be the country equal to the United States and Russia as per number of population. If we assess the income of volunteers they bring to this world, they will be included into top 5 countries as per GDP generated. So that's about, well, about the power of volunteerism. So their skills, their commitment, and their ability to share these skills, well, plays an important role in digital transformation. It's not new. And it's not new for volunteers as well, because I noticed that, well, governments, private sector, they already pay a lot of attention. For example, while I'm sitting here and delivering my presentation, there is a UN volunteer in Armenia contributing to digital transformation, collecting data on tourism, creating new job places. This is volunteer, it's a person with disabilities. So you see, we move to inclusion. And that's how we ensure an equal and inclusive world as well, through volunteerism. This volunteer indirectly, he helps private sector as well, but also he helps the government to generate more income from tourism by collecting, analyzing data through the digital solutions. It just was one example I would like to share with you. I have few more examples, and I definitely in my presentation, well, you may see different solutions and our participation with the private sector. So, why the private sector is interested? Because it's not only about corporate social responsibility. It's about, I would say that volunteerism is an investment. When you invest in volunteers, you receive committed, you receive quite passionate, and you improve your team spirit. And that's why, well, I noticed, well, in Turkey that many academia, many big private companies, they use this corporate social responsibility. Specifically, they focus attention on volunteerism. They made a very interesting research, and they realized that volunteers will actually help them to become more sustainable, to become more profitable by assisting other stakeholders, assisting disadvantaged communities. Today, we live in the global world, where globalization and digitalizations are the key factors for success. And that's why inclusion of volunteers will help us for individuals to gain additional skills and exposure, as well as cultural sensitivity. For private sector to build sustainable team and to expand their markets and to bring common value, I would say, to the humanity as well. So it's both social and economic benefits. And for international organizations, it helps to deliver on their mandate for governments as well, because on sustainable development, the achievement of sustainable development goals. So it's a pleasure for me to be joined by my colleagues here, because again, this is the opportunity. The opportunity is with you, because we have UNDP Center and their new initiative on digital transformation. They move towards South-South cooperation. They support South-South. We have a tool, mechanism called volunteerism. And we have the main stakeholders, private sectors, governments, non-governmental organizations. I just brought some experience, because for you to see, well, the role and the power of volunteerism. Look at Nepal's quake. Actually, online volunteers through online platforms, they helped to mark the hotspots after this quake. They saved the lives of the people there. So, sitting somewhere else, through the digital technologies, they combine digital technologies and human passion together in order to save their lives, the lives of many people. I read one of the stories. It was very touching, because it said about a young girl sitting somewhere in another part of the world who received information about one of the hotspots. She immediately delivered this information to the emergency team, and the family was rescued. And next morning, she switched on the TV, and she saw the family there, talking that they were saved by somebody, by some volunteer. So all their kids and their and the parents were saved. So they were very grateful for this life-saving opportunity. Armenia, it's another example where we generate jobs and so on. And Ukraine, as you see through outreach and so on, we also have inclusion of people. So volunteerism is that power that can help us to include young people, to include generations, to combine them together to ensure peer-to-peer network. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dmitry. I believe the transition will be very smooth, because we will hear from Markus. He's one of the leading actors. He has been one of the leading experts in the field of digital transformation, inclusion, and volunteerism in many companies, actually. Now he's leading the HP's agenda about development. And HP is relevant for many reasons, because they are actually developing one of the key technologies in the industrial transformation. Now this digital transformation and fourth industrial revolution highly emphasizes this cyber physical systems, which is connected with 3D printers. And at the same time, HP has really effective social programs. HP has been promoting entrepreneurship, and at the same time, they are supporting STEM activities with their volunteers, with their corporate volunteers. So we would like to actually hear from a leading technology company how these technologies can be actually provided to the lower segments of the society or the far places in the country. And floor is yours, Markus, please.
Thanks so much, Gökhan, for this introduction and for giving already half of my speech. So it's a great pleasure being here, and the partnership with the UNDP Center is very close and dear to our heart at HP. So if there's one thing I would want you to remember from the intervention I'm giving today is we need to learn to unlearn what we think we know and teach about making things. This is, for us, the fourth industrial revolution. We have to learn to unlearn. And what does that mean? You might remember how information technology came into place. The big wave in the 90s. Some of you might not have been born by then, but others who remember that, like me, this was a really tectonic shift. And how did we manage to get there? It was not easy. And it was driven by the demand from industry, and then governments followed and education followed. The worst thing that I've seen in digital transformation is the following. People said, oh, let's digitize processes. That's fantastic. Let's be more efficient. So what they did was they used a process that was already not efficient in the analog world, digitized it, and with that, made an inefficient process even faster. This is the worst thing that you can do when you talk about digitization. Therefore, what I would want us to learn is, let us unlearn how we did things in the past so that we are open for new ways of doing things. We see today that the world is changing how we design and manufacture things. In the fourth industrial revolution, we see artificial intelligence. Well, data is the new oil. The industrial Internet of Things is changing production. Big data and analytics, robotics is a part of it, and 3D printing certainly makes the Internet of Things real. So we see a transformation in manufacturing that companies have to learn, no matter if they are big or small, no matter if they're in an emerging country or in a mature market. It is about rapid innovation, much shorter time to market, less inventory, more efficient supply chains, and higher capital efficiency. What we see happening in the transformation of manufacturing is a great opportunity specifically for emerging markets, because you don't have to rely heavily on big capital that sits with you. You can be smart, you can have mass customization or individual mass production, and that is the big new opportunity of this fourth industrial revolution. So manufacturing changes dramatically, and countries that are heavily reliant on a manufacturing base, like where we are today in Turkey, or where I come from in Germany, or other countries that are traditionally heavily involved into manufacturing, they better get their head around what's happening in the manufacturing industry, because there is change coming. So are we ready to prepare our next generation? And from an HP perspective, we say we need a 3D printing native workforce, because this will be a new way of manufacturing that's coming. Now, when you think of, there are different estimations, but by popular estimate, we say that 65% of children entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in a completely new series of job types that don't yet exist. So how do you prepare young people for jobs where we don't even know in what area they will play? So some jobs will certainly stay around, but they will change as well. And how do you prepare people for that? This is a question where I think private sector is not prone to be, yes, let us give the answer to that. This is a question where I think we have to have a, that was mentioned earlier in a discussion, a multi-stakeholder approach. I think it is a government, civil society, private sector, academia, international multilateral organization discussion that we have to go through, because if we continue doing what we did in the past, we might not be happy with the results for the future. Another thing that we know is from companies who are predicting the future, there are millions of new jobs coming in the next 10 years solely in the area of 3D printing. Does that mean that no other jobs will go away? Well, most likely yes. But let us embrace the opportunity and find ways how we can make something happen that is beneficial for the countries and for the employers, the employees, to really make production in a new and smart way. So millions of jobs coming, some jobs will be lost. How do we manage this transition? Another discussion that we have to have and that we as HP are having with governments, with stakeholders all around the world. So do we know the answers? No, but we know that we have to have this discussion, and that's, again, thanks for having this panel to have this discussion. So one practical thing that we do at HP is we have a learning initiative for entrepreneurship where we share free of charge through the HP Foundation skills that are targeted for entrepreneurs so that they can learn things that are hopefully beneficial for their future life. So it is an initiative that is online based, and it is accessible under this URL that you see over there, life-global.org, and it has a vast array of courses and curriculum and content. And here's a catalog of courses, free of charge, online, accessible, and it should help people, hopefully, to create the jobs that they want or to be better in the jobs that they are. Usually I'm talking about HP Live for more than 30 minutes, so I'm just having these 2 slides. So in order to move forward, I just want you to remember this one thing that I started with. We need to learn to unlearn what we think we know and teach about making things. This is changing, and with that, thank you so much.
I would like to thank Markus for this insightful speech, and I like the learning to unlearn concept, and at the same time he highlighted that the technologies or the ways we are actually functioning now, there are inefficiencies. New technologies will empower us, but let's not empower the inefficiency. And let's find new ways. Retrofitting is not always the best way. We need to innovate new ways with these new technologies. And thank you for his presentation and speech. And now I would like to give floor to Mehmet Bey. We actually got really key points about the digital transformation. We have a very clear idea about what is the potential of digital transformation, and we also learned that it is coming from many dimensions. But now we need a vision, we need a macro perspective, and I guess it is time for EBRD to give us a bigger picture and a little bit more about how we can deal with all these challenges and opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Gökhan. It's an enormous pleasure to be at the Bosphorus Summit. It's a setting in which we can also learn from each other. So this is a great opportunity. But first, let me allow to say a few words about the EBRD. We are a supranational institution founded in 1991 and owned by, actually we need to update this number, almost 70 different countries and supranational institutions, including European Commission and European Investment Bank. So across our countries of operations, which are currently more than 38 countries, EBRD has the mandate to support the transitions to sustainable market economies through the project financing and business advisory services. One thing very relevant for today's topic is the private sector engagement in the digital transformation and skills. So our constitution mainly mandates us to work at least 60% of our financing made to be to the private sector. But as of today, this percentage is much more higher than the 60%. As you can see, we are operating in a large geography including the North Africa, Central Asia, and including Turkey, Western Balkans, and Southeastern Europe. So, the relevance of today's topic, the digital transformation and skills, is being scrutinized by the bank through a development point of view. So, more recently, we have participated and led two different relevant studies. The first one is the future of work, a regional perspective. This study has been led by 4 different regional multilateral development banks: African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, Inter-America Development Bank, and the EBRD. The second report we led was the EBRD flagship report, EBRD Transition Report for 2018 and 19. It's called Work in Transition. So the digital transformation is recognized within the bank and also in other development institutions under the future of work team. Many studies and initiatives are examining the digital transformation and what these changes mean to our work, our incomes, our skills, our children's future, our companies, and for our governments. But most of that studies are doing so from the perspective of advanced economies. So much less work has been done from the perspective of the developing and emerging economies. So we believe these two studies are showing some highlights for these developing and emerging economies. So in order for the start, I will share with some of the striking slides. So in many economics of the EBRD regions, we have been experiencing the deindustrialization. So these traditional sectors like the manufacturing, agriculture are on the decline trend, while the share of professionals and services and sales workers are on the rise. By the way, we can provide the online version of this, both of these reports after the presentation. So another phenomena that we are currently working on is the job polarization. So if you are a skilled individual, it's a very good time for you to be on the job market. You can have both more quality qualifications and job opportunities. Also, you will be getting paid much more. Also, if you are on the other spectrum, if you have a very low level of skills, your job is less likely to be eliminated in the coming future. But the most difficult part is for the medium-skilled workers and individuals. So we see from the trend between 2000 and 2016, the medium-level skilled workers are having difficulty to keeping up their occupations. Also, another interesting statistics related with the digital transformation and skills is the educational attainment in the EBRD regions. So as you can see from the trend lines, especially in Russia, Ukraine, and Estonia, the percentage of tertiary degree holders is above the advanced economy average of 28%, which means that the quantity of education is on the rise for the EBRD regions. But this doesn't automatically reflect the quality of the education. If you look at the OECD PISA scores, many of the EBRD countries are way below the average of the advanced economies. This situation is getting worsened in the adult situation. ICT skills in EBRD regions are weaker than in advanced economies, especially among older workers. So on your right-hand side, you will see the advanced economies compared with the ICT skills percentage in the EBRD regions. Another interesting statistics I want to share with you is the profound technological transformation, and this is reflection on the rising number of the industrial robots. I'm not sure if you can see the details under the graph, but the blue line represents the EU countries, EU 15 countries, excluding Greece. So there's a quite sharp increase in the number of operational industrial robots. This is also valid for United States of America as well as China. The increase is more steep. EBRD region, it's also on the rise, but compared with the other economies, there's still way to go. But the evidence is also mixed about the skills and the robotization and the drop of jobs. So especially in the Central Europe and Southeast Europe, the robotization led to a small drop in employment. So this is also, I think, quite relevant with what you said, Markus. There are some opportunities, there are new opportunities, also disappearing occupations. Also, another interesting statistic that we can tie with the previous, I think, presentations. In many of the EBRD countries, the EBRD regions, the skill shortages have been exacerbated by the skilled emigration. So the skill supply is provided by a large number of immigrants. So, if we sum it up, the nature of work has been changing, as well as the digital transformation, and the rise of automation and robotics. Many economics of the EBRD regions have experienced deindustrialization and job polarization, a decline in the share of medium-skilled jobs. But while technological change increases demand for skilled labor, regions' economies have weak ICT skills and face substantial emigration of skilled workers. In the short term, the skilled emigration can be a solution and reduce the productivity of the firms. In the longer term, it boosts innovation. But what is private sector doing on the other hand? Despite the challenges in the aforementioned, private sector is emerging as a key actor in skills development area. This is including the digital transformation, as you have mentioned, Markus. Today, private sector has an essential role to play in enhancing the integration of labor market, provide training to students, ensuring students and trainees acquire market-relevant skills. Companies can come together for synergy, greater efficiency. Some of the challenges does remain with public in-country educational systems, especially for cognitive abilities, which take much longer to develop. But also another interesting study by the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum clustered the skills requirement for the future of work along the three categories. These are cognitive skills, cross-functional skills, and basic skills. Especially targeted training in cross-functional skills as well as in some basic skills such as ICT and active learning are with the remit of the individual companies. But despite these opportunities, there are also a number of challenges. As we have mentioned, the future of work offers unparalleled opportunities. But beyond the change, we can also observe today deep and rapid structural change on the horizon, bringing them with major new opportunities, but also uncertainty. Especially private sector players are not equal in front of this challenge. I think it's a good example from the HP point of view. What you have mentioned as HP e-learning is a great initiative, but not all companies are ready to take over. And identifying and implementing best practices for private sector engagement in local skills development has proven challenging also for many companies. This is also relevant for multinationals. On the other hand of the spectrum, SMEs often experience a lack and don't have access to this global know-how about what the future of work, digital transformation will bring them, or to concrete guidelines, access to concrete guidelines about how to best prepare for their prospective employees for it. Also, an interesting observation from the OECD is the widening divide between what is called the superstar firms, which are a minority of firms, innovating and adopting digital technologies, and those more numerous that struggle to keep at pace with the digitalization. At this point, I would like to also shortly mention, with your permission, Gökhan Bey, an interesting initiative that we are working with the UNDP Istanbul Center for Private Sector Development. So far, we have been working with, as EBRD and UNDP, on a different number of skill initiatives. But we are also working on a global level network, which is called Skills for Inclusive Future. To build on the respective comparative advantages of both development institutions and to serve to the broader skills development ecosystem, we are working on a new partnership network design, and which is being studied recently. It's called the network, the Skills for an Inclusive Future Network. Our aim is to bridge the above-mentioned gaps for the SMEs as well as for the multinational companies by building and integrating and amplifying private sector engagement efforts in skills development for the future of work. The network is aimed to become a platform, global platform, to support the digital transformation of businesses by providing them with the relevant skills while improving the status of the inclusion in the economy, which is also quite relevant with today's topic. I'm covering up with some key messages. Preparing for change, yes. As our speakers mentioned, we don't know the future, but we need to be prepared, we need to make plans for that. It's a yes. But predicting the extent, speed, and the exact nature of change, it's very difficult. I mean, there's no evidence, so we don't have an evidence-based policy making for this. Also, it's not just about the robots, artificial intelligence, or it's not just about the jobs. An interesting example also, as we have mentioned, is job polarization, which is very relevant for the inclusion point of view. And this job polarization is also becoming a high threat for the inclusion and equality point of view. Final remark is the skills, and skills. A fancy degree from a worldwide renowned university is no longer effective for the whole professional life. You need to have the lifelong learning approach, skills building, upskilling, and relevant studies. Gökhan Bey, at this point, I believe it's enough to say for a
Thank you, Mehmet Bey. Actually, I was thinking about how to congratulate the panel because we are concluding our remarks with the time limit. And I will just ask for if there is any final remarks from the panel, just one sentence. Please, Ali Bey.
One last remark. When we are listening to all these concepts about digital transformation and all about these, sometimes some institutions or some people may say, this is a far subject, this is not going to hit me. I'm going to ask you one thing. Please go back to your computers and check the last G7 summit, the world's most important meeting, and check what was the #1 item of President Trump's agenda. It was not food, it was not weapons, it was not anything else. It was 5G. His #1 agenda was 5G because United States is losing the 5G war to China. Huawei has 356 patents in 5G. The United States companies only 35, 38. So think, if Trump is putting this in the first agenda, why shouldn't we? That's it.
Thank you again for highlighting the importance of digital transformation. And are there any final remarks from Dmitry?
Thank you very much. From my side as well, importance of digital transformation, but also importance, I really liked it when we talk about the future skills, future employment opportunities, future dimensions, new dimensions we are not aware about. In order to be prepared, I believe that volunteerism is a tool and is a mechanism beneficial for all stakeholders, either governments or private sector or individuals or international organizations and civil society.
Thank you so much. And Markus, please.
For the future of work panels in the future, I would wish to have a more diverse panel sitting here. So just as a thought for future discussions on that topic. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Thank you so much for reminding. And Mehmet Bey.
Actually, I was called, as you know, principal inclusion specialist, which I need to emphasize, but thank you, Markus. One last remark is we have evidence dating back to 1930s that reflects the human obsession with being replaced by the robots, machines, and that kind of stuff. But underlying drivers of the changing nature of work are much more complex. We need to be ready. We also need to understand. We cannot predict the future in whole, but it's a convergence of a range of new technology tools, also working with the human. That's all I want to say.
Thank you so much. And please give a large applause to our panelists for this very insightful speech in a very brief time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this insightful discussion. And if you could please remain on stage briefly, I would like to invite Mr. Erol Usar to present you with plaques of appreciation. And if you could come together for a group photo afterwards. Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us today. And just before the coffee break, only 2 more of your minutes, please. We are going to have the announcement of the launch of a report titled Impact Tech, Creating Marketing Opportunities in Tandem with the Global Goals. And I would like to invite Sahba Sobhani, UNDP Global Program Advisor for Private Sector, and Dicle Yurdakul, Assistant Professor of Marketing at Altınbaş University, please. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here after such a productive and rich panel discussion. When we set up this center in Istanbul in 2011 in partnership with the Turkish government, we did an analysis of 50 centers to look at all the themes around business and development. At that time, inclusion of the poor was a major theme. You know, there was a lot of technological progress, but the poor, the base of the pyramid, the 4.5 billion people were not involved in economic activities. Now with the 4th industrial revolution, we see there's more further disruption. And the question is here, will inclusion go beyond just the poor? And, you know, there's all kinds of other parts of demographics who might become excluded. So the report that we'll be launching today is called Impact Tech, Creating Market Opportunities in Tandem with the Global Goals, which was kindly sponsored by Microsoft. We would like to thank Koç University and Professor Dr. Zeynep Gurhan-Çali for her valuable supervision in this study, and Professor Dicle Yurdakul from Altınbaş University, who managed. I would like to have her come and make presentation on this.
Hello. Thank you very much, Sapa. I'm honored to be here today, having the opportunity to present you the findings, the results of our Impact Tech project we conducted in Turkey in 2019. Emerging technologies such as AI, IoT, cloud systems, and blockchain can have profound effects on major development problems. In addition, according to BSDC's report in 2017, there is a market opportunity regarding SDGs here, reaching $12 trillion. And technology firms that can develop solutions in line with SDGs, centering SDGs, can seize these market opportunities. And regarding this, we conducted this research in Turkey this year in 4 different impact tech markets: healthcare solutions, energy efficiency, education, and agricultural solutions. And our findings direct us to the idea that the thumb rule of market development is bridging the gaps. So I would like to start with bridging the gaps between private and public sectors in terms of data availability and accessibility, which is actually the main factor in developing the deep tech markets and impact tech markets all over the world. However, we also know that forced data localization policies are also becoming common practice, which shows us that there are contradicting demands here. But we believe that this can be solved through dialogue. The first thing that we recommend in a sense is that we need to develop data networks in each of these markets in order to align the demands of the different parties and to ensure data standardization and the systematic collection of data, which is quite important in the development of impact tech markets. Second, we need to set clearly defined boundaries and conditions regarding the way that we collect, save, and share the data, benefiting all the parties included equally, which means the private sector, governments, and of course the individuals. One of the most prominent findings of this research is also building bridges between technology developer and user companies, which seem to be lacking currently in the Turkish market. Unlike the traditional technologies, deep tech requires heavy investment in terms of time and efforts while you're adapting the technology to your business procedures. From the perspective of the participant companies, this is not really done by the tech developers, therefore you need a mediator here, that we call the technology mediators. There are already companies serving in this domain, and we can also say that there is itself the market opportunity in terms of becoming a technology mediator. And this can also serve as a catalyst in terms of developing the impact tech markets. Third, as you might guess, we need to develop bridges between the technology developers and investors. One of our participants from the healthcare sector very clearly said this as saying, if you're investing in the deep tech market in Turkey, in this market, then you will definitely be called an angel investor. Directing us to the idea that there's a high perceived risk from the perspective of the investors. However, this is not the situation in all around the world. We know that in the first half of 2018, AI investments, 12% of all the worldwide private equity investments were for AI. This means that there's investors' interest in the international arena. However, it might be possible to say that these investors are not yet very much interested in developing markets. In terms of the local markets investors in the Turkish market, for example, we can talk about the lack of awareness regarding the market potential of these technologies. Therefore, we believe that showcasing the successful applications of impact tech is quite important. And finally, we need to build bridges with policymakers. As in the case of China, government's committed and continuous efforts are key in developing the deep tech sector. This is the game changer, actually. So deep tech markets require enabling policy and an appropriate mix of direct and indirect support mechanisms, including public investments to research and development in deep tech, and to tax relief for developers and investors. So finally, high-tech markets require countries with local talent, with opportunities and access to finance, and supportive tax and trade policies. This means that dialogue between tech developer and user companies, the governments, and the investors is a crucial step in the way to develop impact tech markets for SDGs. The further details will be available in our report, and if you have any questions, I will be really happy to answer these questions. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yurdaku.